What is up, guys? My name is Matt from Magic the Greatening, and today I got another semi-budget deck tech for you. It's going to be red-white dwarves. Yeah, it's going to be another Kaladesh Aether Revolt type of block. There's actually no Amonkhet cards in here at all. But you guys wanted to see a red-white Dwarves Aggro budget deck. Deck's going to cost you about $50. Now, I will give you an option to make this deck literally worth about $40 less, so it can be like a $10 deck. But if you're playing people that have decent decks that are already, that they're established to be good decks, so you're playing with your friends and you know they have some pretty good decks, you're going to need a few specific cards in here to help you outface them. Before we get into the video, go ahead and hit that like button, helps out a lot. Also hit subscribe if you are new, help me reach 1,000 subscribers, and hit that eye icon in the top right corner of the video to vote for next deck tech. We're going to be having the same 3 from last time, but we'll be adding a 4th option. And these will be the last 4 decks I will be making for Amonkhet. So choose them wisely and in the order you want. Once Hour of Devastation releases, I'm going to be full grind on the Hour of Devastation decks. I've already made a few. I'm waiting for more spoilers. Hopefully they can add to the decks I've already made. So yeah, let's get right into it. Alright, let's start with the creatures. We're playing 21 creatures, which can be a low amount for an aggro deck. But let's get into the earliest drops. We'll get into the 1 and 2 drops here right now. We're going to play 4 copies of Toolcraft Exemplar and 4 copies of Veteran Motorist. We're playing more 2 drops, but these are like the optimal turn 1, turn 2 play. Toolcraft Exemplar on turn 3 or 2. Can be a 3-2, which is very nice for an aggro deck. And Veteran Motorist is probably one of the best cards in the deck, and it's super budget. The Scry 2 ability is insanely powerful because it sets up your next few turns, and also it says whenever he crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1, which is very relevant in this deck. Let's get to the other 2 drops here. We're playing 3 other 2 drops. We're going to play 3 copies of Gearshift Ace, 3 copies of Speedway Fanatic, and 3 copies of Metallic Mimic. Yeah, Metallic Mimic in a budget deck. This card is very much needed in the deck. To turn on things like Toolcraft Exemplar without a 3 or 4 drop vehicle here. Also can just make your dwarves bigger, which is very nice. Obviously, you probably want to play Veteran Motorist on turn 2, maybe Metallic Mimic. So this is one of the cards you can swap out, so you don't have to pay the $20 for the 3 copies of this. You probably could put Solemn Recruit in here instead, because it's a 2/2 double strike. I don't know how often you're going to have things leaving the battlefield for Revolt, but a 2/2 double strike dwarf can turn into a 3/3 with depala, which we'll get to her in a second. But that is the replacement for the budget version of Metallic Mimic. As for Gearshift Ace, very nice. A 2/1 for 2 mana. It's a first strike. Okay. And it says when Gearshift Ace crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains first strike until end of turn. That is very very since all our vehicles have trample. And first strike and trample is a very powerful very powerful combination. So I wanted to play at least 3 copies of him, and then Speedway Fanatic can help our 3 and 4 drop vehicles have haste. Even though it's not a dwarf, the only non-dwarf in the deck, it was very much needed. Also has haste itself, so it's a 2 mana 2/1 haste. So fits pretty well in an aggro deck. The last creature we're playing in the deck is 4 copies of depala Pilot Exemplar. This is the reason to have a dwarves deck, other than maybe Metallic Mimic. Other dwarves you get +1, or other dwarves you control get +1/+1. That's pretty strong. Each vehicle you control gets +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. That's really strong. And this is the ability that I really love. And at first, didn't think I'd really do it, but when you don't really have any cards in hand, depala is the perfect card to have out. When depala pilot exemplar becomes tapped, which can happen on the turn she comes out if you already have a vehicle, you may pay X. If you do, reveal the top X cards of your library, put all dwarf and vehicle cards from among them into your hand, and put the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. We are playing 26 dwarves and vehicles in the deck, so you're bound to hit something if you drop 2, 3, 4 mana into this. You have no cards in hand, you have 6 mana up, somehow your opponent grinded out the game. You pay 6 mana, you look at the top 6 cards, and then you can hit like 3 or 4 dwarves and vehicles. All of a sudden you have a full hand again. Also buffs your dwarves, which is very nice for things like Solemn Recruit if you're taking out Metallic Mimic. Gearshift Ace becomes a 2 mana 3/2 haste, or first strike. Speedway Fanatic doesn't change. Toolcraft becomes a 4/3. Veteran Motorist becomes a 4/2. If you crew a vehicle with Veteran Motorist, that vehicle will get +2/+2 because of depala. So depala wanted to play the full 4 copies, even though she's a legend. You kind of want her out at all times, and you don't want her removed. All right, to the vehicles, and we try to keep it as budget as possible. If you have cards like Heart of Kiran, obviously throw it in here. But for those that don't have Heart of Kiran, these 8 vehicles are going to consist of 3 Fleet Wheel Cruisers, 3 Renegade Freighters, and 2 Untethered Express. I like the trample abilities because it just keeps your opponents from not being able to chump, which is very strong. Renegade Freighter could be a 3 mana 5/4 trample. Do you have Veteran Motorist? 3 mana 6/5. Do you have depala and Veteran Motorist? It's a 7/6 trample. And if you crew it with Gearshift Ace, it can be like a 7/6 first strike. It can get ridiculous with all these abilities. Fleet Wheel doesn't need to be crewed the turn it comes out. It just swings in for 5, which is very strong on turn 4. And Untethered Express was a lot better than I thought it would be. It's a 4 mana 4/4 trample vehicle, which isn't the greatest thing, but every time you attack with it, it gets a counter. So it's just going to get bigger within the game. And your opponents, every time you attack with it, it's going to get bigger, and your opponent's going to have to put out more blockers, even though it's probably going to live through all of that. And if you crew it with a Veteran Motorist, and you have a depala out, it is a 7/7 trample for 4 mana. So very, very strong little combination here. Things with Gearshift Ace. Let's say you have a depala, Gearshift Ace, Speedway Fanatic, Veteran Motorist. You bring this out, you give it haste, you give it first strike, you give it +2/+2, and you have a 7/7 trample first strike on a very, very strong top deck. So Untethered Express can be very nice in that regard. On to the non-creature spells, which there's 8 of. We're going to play 2 Built to Last to protect our vehicles, and I guess depala as well. Obviously, she's not a artifact, so she's not going to get indestructible, but if you want to protect maybe your Metallic Mimic as well, if you decide to play that, you can do that, and it becomes a 4/3 indestructible. So you could protect it, or maybe they try to hit your depala with a Harness Lightning, you give it +2/+2, they don't have enough energy to keep it around. We're also playing 3 copies of Ride Down, 3 copies of Stasis Snare. Ride Down to literally ride down anything your opponents try to put in your way. They try to put in front a huge body that can actually take out your guy. Maybe they somehow got a Gear Hulk out, and you just swing in, and they're like, oh, this is going to be an easy block. No, you ride it down. And the thing about this card, so a lot of people are confused about Ride Down. And it says, destroy target attack or target blocking creature. Creatures that were blocked by that creature this turn gain trample into end of turn. So let's say you swung in with the depala, and they flash in a Gear Hulk, and they try to block. Ride Down destroys that creature and gives depala, they assign blocker, then you destroy it. If this Ride Down didn't give your depala or whatever you're swinging in with trample, that damage gets neutralized and your damage doesn't go through. So you swing in with whatever creature, a Veteran Motorist. You swing in for 3, they flash in a Gear Hulk, and they block it. If Ride Down just killed the creature but didn't give your guy trample, you don't get that 3 damage through. But since Ride Down gives your guy trample, it gets that 3 damage too. So in that way, it's very, very strong. And then Stasis Snare, I found problems facing gods with this deck. We're not very good at killing gods. They're a huge roadblock for us, especially Ronus. That card kills this deck, so I had to throw in the 3 copies of Stasis Snare. Somewhat expensive card, not too bad, and it's also double white, so yeah. Before we get to the land, let's go over how I did with this deck. I did a lot better than I thought I would. I went 3, 2, and 1, And that one game where I didn't win or lose, it was, you know, it wasn't like we tied or whatever. The dude just had to leave during the third game. It was kind of weird. Like, he just like, oh, shoot, I gotta go. Sorry. So I didn't really want to count it. It was against Grix's control. But anyway, we went 1-0 against Mono White Gideons. We went 1-0 against Mono Nothing Eldrazi. It's kind of a weird deck. Anyway, we went 0-1 against Green Red Stompy. Now, I don't know what else that maybe Green Red decent stuff, Green Red mid range, whatever you want to call it. 0-1 against Grix's control is the dude that left on the third game. Green Red Energy, we went 1-0 against, and we went 0-1 against Blue White Spirits, which is a like $400 deck, $300 deck, something stupidly ridiculous like that. So it was the Gideon deck. It's like a $200, $300 deck. But there was no way we're going to beat Blue White Spirits with this deck because it's a budget deck. Now we can get into the lands. So we're going to be playing, and this is the other card I said that we're going to have to replace, because Metallic Mimic is about $20 for the 3 copies, and the thing like Inspiring Vantage is also $20 for the 4/4. You really need this card. At first, I wasn't trying to play this card because it's budget, but I was getting creamed. You know, you want to play a Toolcraft turn 1, but you only have red mana in your hand. All our creatures, except for Speedway Fanatic and Metallic Mimic, require white mana. So Inspiring Vantage can help give us more, white mana sources, even though we're playing more plains than mountains. It's just like, it became to where I started mulliganing so much. I'm like, I have to throw this in here, otherwise this deck's never going to work. So I threw in the 4 Inspiring Vantage. You could replace it with Evolving Wilds if you want, to take off the $20 price tag from it. But that's the replacement for it. But Inspiring Vantage helps this deck so much, especially since it's aggro. So we want to play the full 4 of that. And then we have 9 mountain and 10 plains. You could probably make it 8 mountain and 11 plains. But I found I found it all right. You know, all you really need is 2 white sources and you're good to go because of Stasis Snare. Sideboard time, and this is where you guys can get creative, because with this deck I didn't know what to sideboard. Maybe some of the normal things you'd find in red-white, but I try to stay budget at the same time. Sweltering Suns hurts us more than it helps us, so we're not going to be sideboarding that. I was thinking about Dusk Till Dawn, but all our dudes are going to have 3 power or more, and they're not going to get any value from Dusk Till Dawn. So this is the sideboard I came up with. 4 by Force, 3 Carry Ziv's Expertise, 4 Magma Spray, and 4 Sky Sniff. Now, so by Force takes care of artifacts. Carry Zevs can be very strong against things that, like gods or things you just can't deal with. I don't know, if depends on a certain situation. I didn't sideboard it in often, but it's very nice in this deck because it's cheap, helps push damage, and you can put a 2-drop out after you play this. So it's a good turn 3 play. Magma Spray, just more removal. If they're playing a whole bunch of cheap stuff, you just want to burn them out with it. Magma Spray is good for that. And Sky Sniff, if they're also able to put out a whole bunch of ground creatures, you could start swinging with Sky Sniff in the air, which can have 4 power, so don't count it out completely. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Go ahead and hit that like button if you like the video. Subscribe if you are new. And hit that eye icon in the top right corner to vote for the next deck tech I will make. These last 4 will be might be the last 4 for Amonkhet Standard. So go ahead, choose wisely, and I'll see you in the next video.